a sweet potato pie? Even the keenest taste buds will tell you the best food on the planet. Large enough to serve you and small enough to know you. So get to Henry's at 5431 Indian Head Highway, Oxon Hill, Maryland, or give us a call at 301-749-6856.
Soul food. Henry's soul food.
What we need.
Soul food. Henry's soul food.
Welcome to the Armstrong Williams Show, brought to you by Golden Crust Bakery, the fastest growing Caribbean-owned franchise in the United States. Golden Crust is committed to the delivery of quality food and excellent customer service. Visit them today at goldencrustbakery.com. Hello out there in Radio Land. How's everybody? I'm Armstrong Williams. Welcome back to this edition of the Armstrong Williams Show. Thank you so much for joining us. And just turn down a little volume here. You know, I can tell when I need to become my own engineer, and that's what I'm doing. I'm becoming my own engineer. Hello, everyone, and welcome. I am really trying to figure out what's going on in North Korea. It is really escalating there. Do you think they really want to go to war? I just don't. I don't get it. Do you get it? It's unreal what's going on in that place. He's dying for attention. He's like a spoiled child, and he's willing to do anything to get it. We're going to talk about that. Jordan Goodman is joining us, and later on, Dr. Gary Bernard. You know, Dr. Bernard is a regular with us on Mondays. I want to thank you all so much for joining us for this edition of the Armstrong Williams Show. So, let me see if Jordan's there. Jordan, you on the line? Not yet. Jordan is not on the line. But so we're waiting on Jordan Goodman. Our phone lines are open, 1-866-620-6620, 803-733-5620. And you can always email us at info@rightsidewire.com, info@rightsidewire.com. You can visit our website, www.rightsidewire.com. But South Koreans mold nuclear weapons. I'm telling you, you can't believe this. The barrage of threats from North Korea has sparked talk from within South Korea of the need to develop its own nuclear weapons. Its own nuclear weapons. And a recent poll shows that 2/3 of South Korean civilians surveyed support the idea, but we know that's propaganda, especially in the wake of all that propaganda they have gone on. The talk of South Korea arming with its own nuclear weapon used to be taboo in the country. And there's no apparent official government move to do so, but the tensions between the two Korean nations have amplified over the weeks, becoming reminiscent of the Cold War. Jordan Goodman!
Great to be with you, Armstrong. Sorry about that.
Yeah, right.
No, my other show just ran long. I couldn't stop. I was hosting it, so I couldn't leave it.
We are the show of the show. But
I'm with you.
We understand. How are you today, Jordan?
You make things very exciting, Armstrong. I must say, now you've created a Cypriot crisis of all things. You come out of left field every time. I never know where you're going to hit me next.
What crisis have I created, Jordan Goodman? What are you?
All right. Well, in Cyprus over the weekend, which is a country that has been kind of an offshore banking haven for all kinds of illicit money. The Russian tycoons and various other people used it as a tax shelter, kept tons of money in the Cypriot banks, and they went and lent it out and lost lots of money. So the country of Cyprus was about to default on its debt, kind of a mini Greece, and they had over the weekend a bailout from the European Central Bank and the International Monetary Fund for about $17 billion. And they said the condition for giving them the bailout, so Cyprus wouldn't default, was everybody, all the bank depositors would have to take a 6.5% haircut of their bank accounts. They'd take a 6.5% tax right out of their accounts if you had under 100,000, and if you had over 100,000, it would be a 9% haircut right away. And this caused revolts in the streets, and the Cypriot government had to vote to accept this, and they didn't want to do it because they were going to get voted out. So the banks have been closed, just kind of chaos in Cyprus, and this caused a reverberation throughout all of Europe. The bonds of Italy and Greece and Spain and Portugal and Ireland, all the weak countries, plummeted in value today. Their currencies plummeted. People were pouring money into the safe vehicles like the Swiss franc and the German banks and so on because they want to have safety. German bonds actually went to negative yields. You actually get a minus 1% yield for putting one into German bonds because people just wanted safety no matter what. So you really made quite a mess for us over there, Armstrong. I don't know how you do these things.
How should it have been handled in a way that would not have caused all this chaos?
Well, they shouldn't have gotten into the first mess in the first place. I mean, the Cypriot banks, similar to the Greek banks, went on this wild lending spree to all kinds of risky ventures, and including buying a lot of Greek bonds as well. And so this has happened several times. It's happened in Ireland. This happened in Iceland. The Spanish banks made all kinds of wild and crazy loans which fell apart. And every time this happens, they have to go to the Germans to bail them out, which is what it comes down to. The Germans are the ones supplying the money.
They know these loans are risky. They know they're not going to get a return. They're just trying to do these loans because when they do this, other people, these risky loans, the very few make money knowing that it's going to collapse the banking system and the economy. These people know better by now, Jordan. Come on. Who do they think they're kidding? This is a scam.
But as long as they keep getting bailed out, they don't worry about it, right?
But why should they continue to be bailed out?
Because it could cause an international contagion, which is what potentially was happening today. I mean, that's why all these other countries that had nothing to do with Cyprus had their bonds and currencies fall sharply because of the worry about a contagion. They may have to, if Cyprus, this deal doesn't go down and they do default on their debt, Cyprus would be thrown out of the European currency, which would be the first time that would ever happen. There is no mechanism to throw a country out. You can only get in. So it could lead to other problems with Greece and all the other countries that are being hit with these huge austerity programs. So that's why they don't want to let them go under because it has all kinds of reverberations.
Here's the question: when are we gonna? We talk about people and individuals being responsible. What about these countries and these governments, man, and these banks? I mean,
they're not being responsible. The only way they're responsible is being when you need to be bailed out, you start listening. But before that, they didn't listen at all. The amount of
but they were told of the consequences.
That's right. Just to give you a sense, in Cyprus, the deposits in the Cypriot banks were 8 times their gross domestic product. Okay, it's kind of like the Cayman Islands of Europe in a certain way. People were pouring money in there, getting extra high yields, and they thought safety. And then the Cypriot banks, who had far more money than they needed in their domestic economy, go on lending sprees all over the world. The same thing happened in Iceland and Ireland and other places before. But when they want to get bailed out, they go to the International Monetary Fund and the European Central Bank and say, all right, we'll bail you out under these very strict conditions, and they don't like the conditions.
How much longer can the European Union exist, especially under the same currency?
Well, this may be the beginning of the crack of that. I mean, we've had this before, where people didn't think that Greece would survive inside the European currency, but they patched things up. They agreed to very severe austerity measures, and they're still in there. Again, there is no mechanism to leave the European currency. When the original treaty happened in 1999, it was the Roach Motel. You could get in, but you couldn't get out, I guess. And now people need to, we'll see. Maybe they won't get thrown out yet. But one austerity program is going to lead to another. I mean, the austerity programs that have been imposed on Greece, on Spain, on Italy, on Portugal have been very, very severe. I mean, you have like 25% unemployment in Spain, 30% unemployment in Greece. The youth unemployment well over 50%. So it's a place that doesn't have a lot of hope, and it's hard to grow your way out of something like that when everybody's so completely discouraged, and you also scare people who have money to get their money out of there. Anybody who had money in Greek or Spanish or Cypriot banks who was smart got it out there before this happened. And this just makes people even more worried. Here you are sitting there with your savings in a Cypriot bank, and all of a sudden they just take 6.5% of it overnight without you even knowing it happened to you.
That's no different.
This makes people very nervous.
It's no different than they try to take 6 or 9% of our bank accounts. How would we react?
There would be riots in the streets, I think, is what would happen.
Look, for some people, there would not be much left.
That's right. Well, the same thing with the Cypriots. They haven't been doing well going into this whole thing. So this is going to wipe a lot of people out. They're not going to be able to pay their bills. There's going to be all kinds of defaults and bankruptcies in Cyprus. So it's a very dramatic situation.
You know, let's fast forward to the U.S. economy and talk about the progress we're making with the banks. Are people finding the banks more friendly and receptive?
I wouldn't use the word friendly. If you've got money, they're very friendly. If you don't have money, they're not so friendly. I mean, you see what's happening in the mortgage area. People are getting mortgages. The housing market is definitely rebounding. Housing stocks have done well. Mortgage volume is up. But those are the people who are doing pretty well. For the people who, in many cases, self-employed people have a really hard time getting loans. If you're just going off your tax return instead of a W-2, they're having a hard time.
John Goodman is in the house. I'm Armstrong Williams. Our phone lines are open. Info at rightsidewire.com, 1-866-620-6620. We'll be back.
Say bye-bye burgers, pass on the pizza, forget the francs. Anytime is party time. Discover Golden Crust's authentic Jamaican-style patties. Beef, chicken, vegetables, soya, spinach, and shrimp. Feast on our great taste sensations. Jerk chicken, oxtail, sliced fish, and much more. Savor the taste of the Caribbean. Only at a Golden Crust near you. A family tradition since 1949. GoldenCrustBakery.com.
For more information on the Armstrong Williams Show, please visit our new website at www.rightsidewire.com. There you can find his syndicated column archive, view live streams, and get your favorite conservative pundits' views on the current issues affecting the American people. From building wealth to foreign policy, stay connected with Armstrong Williams and his colleagues at the all-new www.rightsidewire.com.
Hi, this is Armstrong Williams. What does it mean to be conservative? Freedom of speech, freedom of free enterprise, freedom of assembly, less government, less taxes. As a matter of fact, a flat tax. Everyone should pay proportional tax. It doesn't matter whether you make $100 million or $10,000. Everyone should pay their 10%. Everyone should have something at stake in this American economy. I'm Armstrong Williams expressing what we mean by conservative traditional value.
Does your school, team, church, or charity need a new fundraiser? Do you need to work out of your home or part-time? Are you a small business that can use an additional revenue stream? Then you need Yellow Llama. Do you need affordable web services or tools to enhance your existing business? Are you a graphic artist who wants to create a revenue stream with your art but not get ripped off? Then go to www.yellowllama.com.
America must change course if we hope to survive and save the American dream for our children and grandchildren. How do we fix Social Security and Medicare? How do we cut government spending? How do we reform health care? How do we simplify the tax code? The Heritage Foundation has a bold plan that tackles these tough problems using common sense solutions that leave partisan politics on the sidelines. Find out how we can save the American dream at savingthedream.org, paid for by the Heritage Foundation.
Hi, this is Armstrong Williams with an opportunity to own a piece of paradise in Nassau, Bahamas. Spectacular land prices, 8,000 square feet, 20,000 square feet lot, affordable prices, hilltop properties with views of the magnificent sea. Just call 242-677-3120 or 3121 or go to info@rightsidewire.com and leave your information.
Where heads of state, sports, entertainment, and political celebrities meet. You're listening to Armstrong Williams.
You were talking about the banks and the housing market here. Our very special guest, Mr. Financial Jordan Goodman. Jordan, welcome back.
Great to be with you again, Armstrong. Well, we're talking about the banks. I mean, they have a huge amount of capital right now. They've been the Federal Reserve has been basically giving them money at no cost for a long time. They've been lending out some of it, and loans have definitely gone up from, say, a year or so ago. But they've got an awful lot left, and they haven't been lending it out because they're so afraid of all the regulations, particularly because of the Dodd-Frank bill, which really says never take a risk and never lose any money again. They would never want to go through the financial crisis again, so it made them very cautious. I think the economy could grow a lot more if they were a little bit looser on both small business loans, mortgage loans, credit cards, and other things, which is really the grease of the economy.
You know, but how do you grow your own independent economy?
Well, you've got to have some kind of an edge. You've got to have, I think, education's part of it, a drive, and be a kind of owner mentality instead of employee mentality. If you're an employee mentality, you're limited to trading your time for dollars, and there's just not a lot of leverage to it. The way to really do well is to be an owner mentality and get other people to work for you, and you make money off of their work, and you create leverage and help customers thrive, and that's the way you can only do so much yourself. You only have so many hours in the day yourself, Armstrong, but if you get other people working on your behalf, you can do very, very well.
But how do you know which is the right risk for you to take instead of knowing that this risk is going to make it even more difficult and set you further back if you were to take it? How do you differentiate between a good risk and a bad risk?
It's got to resonate with your own personality and your own history. You shouldn't go too far afield from something you don't feel comfortable with. But there are people all the time, whether it's creating an app for the iPhone or network marketing or real estate. There's a lot of different ways you can create leverage. You've got to do something that's appropriate for your risk tolerance and what you feel comfortable with. And a lot of people do that, and they're quite successful at it.
Rodney, thank you for calling in. You have a question to ask, I guess, Jordan Goodman. Go ahead.
Yeah, good show. I got two questions. Being that the economy is coming back and the real estate is coming back, do you feel that Detroit is actually a gold mine? You know, is it going to be a big boom with the real estate? And also, I got a question on, you said Cyprus? I thought Cyprus was still a part of Italy, but I didn't know they were their own country. But couldn't they have asked for half of that money to bail out, and do they have a gold reserve? Maybe they should have used their gold reserve and only took half of their bailout money. I'll take your answer off there.
Okay, well, Cyprus has been an independent country. It's kind of half Greek, half Turk. And remember, way back, there were battles over Cyprus, and they kind of separated the island into the Turkish part and the Greek part. I think what you may be referring to is Crete. Crete is part of Greece. But Cyprus has definitely been its own country, kind of got this Greek and Turkish side to it. And no, they do not have gold reserves. It'd be a nice idea, but they do not have gold reserves. I mean, their currency has been the euro since 1999, as have the other countries in the euro. So they are pegged to the euro for good or bad, and right now they need the other European countries to bail them out. As far as Detroit, a gold mine is not the word that normally would come to mind for Detroit. I mean, they were just last week taken over by the state of Michigan with a kind of emergency financial manager because the place is such a complete and total mess. The mayor, what was his name? Kwame something? I forgot his name. The mayor of Detroit, who just got convicted for all kinds of extortion and bribery and so on. He's going off to jail. No, I don't think it's going to be a gold mine. I mean, there are people talk, for example, about creating a international tax-free zone.
Kwame Kilpatrick.
Yeah, that was the one who just got convicted. He was the mayor, just got convicted of all kinds of things. He's going off to jail. There are people talking about making Detroit an international tax-free zone that would attract investors and so on. But the way it's being run right now, a gold mine is not the place I would think you'd want to be in Detroit.
We have another question for you, Jordan. Just
sure.
hold tight.
What is your comment on Greece possibly cracking into the savings of most of their citizens? I believe the number is 10%, taking money from their citizens in order to help fix their economic situation.
Well, I mean, they have raised taxes dramatically already in Greece, and people resist that a lot. I mean, what just happened over the weekend in Cyprus has never happened before that I know. I've never heard of a country going in and just taking 6.5% of people's savings from their bank accounts under 100,000, 9% over 100,000. So I haven't heard that before. One of the reasons people are freaking out is they're worried this could happen in other countries like Greece and Italy and Spain. But I think the reaction to it has been so violent that I don't think other countries are going to try to do that. I mean, the countries of Greece has got a very, very weak government. Italy has no government right now. They had an election that was so contested that neither side was able to form a coalition. And the countries of Spain and Portugal have very weak governments as well. So I think the last thing they need is to start confiscating money out of people's bank accounts, as they just did in Cyprus.
You know, I just don't help us understand. You know, you look at all these countries like Greece and now Cyprus and others that are going bankrupt. It seems as though there's like a mob mentality of the few that they just can raid and rip these countries, unlike how they do in some of these African countries where they just can go into the coffers and take $1 billion and nobody can say anything about it. But it's basically the same. It's just corrupt with no regard for the people, as if they have no regard to the money and the taxes they collect to fill these coffers of these bureaucracies. They can just go and rip these people off, come up with these Ponzi schemes and justify they collude with the banks and other financial institutions in the name of austerity, knowing exactly what the end result is going to be, and we keep doing this repeated behavior, financial behavior, over and over again.
Well, this is actually bigger than what I think you just said, Armstrong, because that's true domestically. Like if you're in Zimbabwe, you know, Mugabe rips the people off or something. But in this case, it's money from around the world that has come in to do the same thing. One of the biggest sources of that deposit money in Cyprus was Russian oligarchs who took a lot of money out of Russia and put it into Cyprus. They thinking as a safe harbor. Again, they had 8 times their GDP in the bank deposits. That didn't come from Cypriots, right? So the exploitation and everything you were just talking about is actually an international conspiracy of oligarchs around the world, particularly in this case Russia.
But so how did Russia benefit from the scheme?
Well, the Russian country didn't. The Russian oligarchs did.
But they had
Russian oligarchs got their money out of Russia so it wouldn't be taxed, and because Russia has high taxes on wealth.
But you're saying in the long run. But you're saying in the long run they lost it in the Cyprus banks.
That's right. That's right. They would never think this would happen because they thought these were very solid banks. Just like in the United States, lots of Americans put money into Cayman Islands Bank, right? Because they think it's safe and nothing would ever happen. It's the IRS can't get to it. It was like an offshore account. They could hide their money and earn high interest. The same thing that just happened today in Cyprus. If it affected the United States, it would be like the Cayman Islands banks started going down. It would be a tremendous shock to people because people have a lot of money in those. Basically, they're post office boxes. They're not even banks. But they're doing it to avoid U.S. taxes and scrutiny.
But are you also implying because the money was corrupt and ill-gained, in the end, because their money was lost in these Cyprus banks, they got what they deserved?
I would agree with that the money was ill-gotten. I mean, these were the Russian oligarchs who basically ripped off the Russian people when the major Russian enterprises were privatized. Yeltsin in the early 90s basically sold off the entire Russian infrastructure, the steel plants and the communications business and the cement and the coal mines. They sold it all off to these oligarchs who bought it for pennies on the dollar and then made literally billions of dollars getting them back up and running in a more profitable way. Then they took this money and they didn't reinvest it in Russia. They put it into the south of France and bought homes in Monaco and deposited in Cyprus and Swiss banks and all that. So it didn't help the Russian people very much that they got ripped off like this.
You know, I'm just stunned. You know, but listen, there are a lot of good people who earned their money the honest way and saved,
Right.
who also lost their money.
Sure, the normal Cypriot citizens who didn't do anything wrong whatsoever, who aren't that wealthy, so it's not a very rich country at all, and they had their money just in their local little savings account, and they woke up this morning, 6.5% of it was just gone, with no choice, no warning, no anything, just because they were having to have their money in a Cypriot bank. They're not happy.
Is there an example of where nations don't exploit their people? They actually manage their money. They actually create an economy where they benefit from in jobs, and they don't have the kind of disasters that we're witnessing all over the world today.
I think so. I'll give you an example. Singapore. I think in Singapore, it's a very prosperous country. They have low, flat taxes. They have very conservative policies as anti-crime. There's not a lot of crime there. They really encourage businesses to go in there. It's absolutely booming, just absolutely booming. So that would be an example of a country that I think is run pretty well, and the vast majority of the people really benefit from it.
The problem is in our economy is that so many, all of us, whether you're at the highest end or the lowest end, we've all been diminished in some way or another financially.
Yeah. Well, we took on all this debt. I mean, the debt we're taking on now, we're up to $16.5 trillion in debt and growing at a huge rate. I mean, at the current rate, we're going to go well over $20 trillion by the time Obama's 4 years are over, probably 22, 23 trillion, something like that. This is a huge burden on us. We have to spend more and more on interest and on our kids and grandkids. So it is...
George Steele, you know we always keep you on and talk with Gary Bernard because he's always excited. Do you have time today?
I'd be glad to, yes.
Okay, thank you. We'll be back.
Armstrong Williams returns in a moment.
For more information on the Armstrong Williams Show, please visit our new website at www.rightsidewire.com. There you can find his syndicated column archive, view live streams, and get your favorite conservative pundits' views on the current issues affecting the American people. From building wealth to foreign policy, stay connected with Armstrong Williams and his colleagues at the all-new www.rightsidewire.com.
Life is full of unexpected changes. Everyone has potential to do wrong. And when they choose to do it, contact the Bucksell Group for your private investigation needs. TheBucksellGroup.com or by phone at 202-243-9746. Whether there's an instance of a cheating spouse, child custody, process service, or security, don't continue suspecting. Get closure so that you can move on with your life. Visit TheBucksellGroup.com now or call 202-243-9746. If you think it's happening, it probably is.
To travelers along the road of life who have fallen asleep at the wheel, to the many who woke up in time to avert disaster and get back on the righteous path. For the ones who crashed and survived and now adhere vigilantly to a virtuous and righteous path. Finally, Armstrong Williams' much-anticipated new book, Reawakening Virtues, gives his insights into these daily challenges and much more. Reawakening Virtues is available in bookstores and at Amazon.com.
Join the millions of Americans who pursue one of our country's finest traditions, from hunting to sport shooting. Since 1871, the NRA has grown as a service organization involved in all aspects of shooting sports and is a proud defender of the Bill of Rights. Join today to begin taking advantage of exclusive membership offers and discounts, including up to $25,000 in insurance coverage. Contact the NRA today. Call 1-800-672-3888 or visit nra.org.
Most Americans simply have never been taught the basics of money management, let alone how to secure their financial future. But there is hope. Financial Education and Literacy Advisors, also known as FELA, does what others don't. FELA teaches financial education. If you'd like more information about providing a financial wellness program for your employees, or a credit-bearing college course in personal finance, or other valuable programs, please visit myfela.com. That's myfela.com, or send an email to info@myfela.com.
Elder Chicks is an exciting part of the fastest growing segment of the population. Women in their 70s, 80s, and older who are mastering the art of a senior life. We're no longer unseen and unheard. We're providing role models for each other and the baby boomers who are fast approaching retirement. Join our virtual community. Hit www.elderchicks.com on your computer keyboard.
Where heads of state, sports, entertainment, and political celebrities meet. You're listening to Armstrong Williams.
And welcome back to the broadcast. Thank you so much for joining us. Dr. Gary Bernard, somebody tells me you're fired up today.
Well, sure, I'm fired up. That's how I keep going. I stay fired up. Not always, but most of the time.
Well, we want to make sure that we increase your fire.
Okay, good.
Listen, Logan, Jordan, before we get to Gary and living in stressful times, how much does lack of financial resources or abundance of financial resources stress people out?
Big time. I mean, it's one of the main reasons. 50% of divorces are because of financial problems. It really affects people's happiness. I mean, they always say, if you could choose to be rich or poor, I'd rather be rich. And, you know, rich is... wealth doesn't buy happiness, but it's certainly better than not having it. So it certainly helps to have financial strength as opposed to have financial weakness as a major preoccupation in your life.
And how do you respond to that, Dr. Gary Bernard?
I say amen. That's exactly right. Anything can be stressful. We can turn anything into stress. There's no doubt about it. But if we don't have our basics, that ends up becoming a chronic stressor, and that's what we're not well engineered for. We're engineered pretty well, most people are, to handle stresses in life. But when they turn into chronic stressors, that's where we've got big problems. And generally they lead to these negative outcomes like divorce, or at least a lot of disruption in relationships and family living, and making poor judgments, and all this cascades into a host of difficult living situations. That's why it's so difficult for the poor. It's a difficult thing to wake up and not have enough to get by, and all of your energy is in trying to figure out how to get by. Fortunately, we're in a country where our poor, relatively speaking, isn't like world poorness. So in some ways we're blessed as Americans.
Although the poor don't feel that way. I think the poor in America, even though they may make more than people in Zimbabwe, still feel pretty poor. They see wealth and middle-class people doing much better all around them. That makes it worse to some extent.
Well, in that way, I think you're right, and that's how mentally, cognitively, we create our own mapping or the framework with which we understand our surroundings. And if we're surrounded by people with a lot, and we see it on TV and all of that, that creates its own stressor.
People
so you're right, it's all relative.
Yep.
Yeah,
it's all relative compared to others, not in absolute terms. That's right.
Yeah.
Well,
but within those limits that we do get to make some internal adjustments, rich or poor or whatever our circumstances are, we get to attribute meaning to whatever it is that's going on in our life. Now, that's not an easy thing, or everybody would be doing it in a real healthy way, but it is still something that we can learn to do. But you do have to be intentional and focused, and you have to work on mental discipline and these things that, for the most part, we don't do very well. There are a lot of things that get in the way of that. And one reason I wanted to continue this discussion is there's so much more to talk about, but, we get these little sound bites, and a lot of times all you have to do is hear the word stress, and somebody is talking about stress again, and it's like, oh my God, tell me one other thing that I do wrong, and that's stressful. And so we turn it off, avoid, and we continue in our same, many times, very maladaptive patterns. What I would like to do is bring about some of this other side. We need stress. That's the reality. There is a very interesting relationship between stress and performance. And if you think back to math, when we have that x-axis, the vertical one, and the y-axis, the horizontal one, and it makes that L shape, if we can get that vision in our head. And then if you plot this graph on that horizontal y-axis, and it looks like a little mountain or a hill that goes up. That's the relationship. So as we add stress along that bottom horizontal line, it increases in our life. The performance goes up. We do better, only to a point. Then we hit this ceiling, and then it starts to go down the slippery
what
slope.
kind of stress are you speaking of? That's like good cholesterol and bad cholesterol. Tell me the good stress that makes you better, and how do you measure good stress versus the bad stress? Is it one and the same?
Well, that's a difficult thing to answer in just a little one or two sentence, but here's the way I look at it.
Take 10 sentences.
Okay, here's the way I look at it. Any stress can be good. For example, I get a promotion. Well, that could be a wonderful thing. It can also be something that is my downfall if I'm not ready for it. So the way we look at the event and the meaning we attribute to it is a big factor in determining whether it's good for us or not.
So
now, that's not the same as good cholesterol, bad cholesterol.
Let me stop you. Listen, nothing changes the fact that a promotion in that context is good. Nothing changes the fact that you are in a situation where you saw no way out and you succeeded. Now, if a person chooses to turn that into a stressful situation and become negative about it because they're basically a negative person and they don't believe anything good is going to last long, that's on them. It's not that what is happening to you is stressful. It's what you make it into that becomes stressful.
Well, you're defining the relativity of stress. Think about that in sports, Armstrong. You, a great tennis player to, let's take a major league pitcher who is in the ninth inning. Well, is that stressful to have the bases loaded and you have 2 outs and the game is hanging in the balance?
That's what you live for.
That's what you want only if you're prepared for it. If you're not, it's a catastrophe in the waiting. It's a terribly stressful thing.
If you are a professional, that's why you are a professional. Now, if you're telling me some amateurs going out there, that's a different story. That's why we pay you the big bucks and pay to go see you.
Well, let me tell you this. That's the whole point here. We can learn to do what great athletes learn. They learn how to define that zone, and they put a lot of energy into it because they are getting paid big bucks. Well, could we put more time and energy into that because we're getting paid in big dividends with our health, with our well-being, with our success in living among people and feeling like waking up and moving forward? See, all of this stuff is relative. I know we don't like to think about it that way. It is not black and white, though. It's not either or.
Jordan?
And so,
what's interesting is that what society a lot is about today is reducing stress, trying to reduce stress and risk. The government regulations don't want anybody to take any risk or have any possibility of harm. And that takes away stress, it takes away motivation, and therefore a lot of people don't succeed.
It certainly can. That's my point, Jordan, and that's exactly what I'm getting at. What we want to do is reframe how we look at it. We're looking to manage it, not get rid of it. We need it. We need to wake up and feel some pressure. You need
a lot
to go
of people
to
want
the
to get
place.
rid of risk. They don't want to take risk, and they'd rather have no risk than manage it.
And so what you hear in corporate life, of course, is risk management. Everything's about risk management. It's not get rid of risk. It's how we're going to manage this to our benefit. That's what we're talking about.
I'll tell you in the financial world, today, lots and lots of people have lots and lots and lots of money in safe alternatives, so-called safe alternatives, like CDs, money market funds, treasury bills, literally earning zero. And the prospect is they're going to earn zero for a long time just to be safe. They don't want to take any risk whatsoever. In fact, they're taking a huge risk because their money is not growing while their cost of living is going up. So that's an example of people avoiding risk and actually hurting themselves as a result of it.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Good point.
I'm just, for me, it's different. But I understand what you're saying. People, I think more what you're describing is the insecurity of people. I think you pray for what you want, and when you get it, it becomes even more of a burden to you. And especially when you're not accustomed to having that. And then you can become suspicious of good things that people do for you because you think there's some hidden agenda. I think that could bring about stress. So I think it also depends upon your environment, how well you are adapted to that environment can also contribute to the stress factor.
The people who've done very well have been able to deal with stress and risk. If you just keep your money in a money market fund, you're not going to get rich. I can guarantee you that. So you look at the Forbes 400, the billionaires in the world, they all took some risk along the way, and it worked out for them. Other people took risk, it didn't work out, but that's part of the capitalist system.
And part of the way they learned probably is multiple times before it didn't work out for them, but they didn't get out of the game. They learned to manage it better.
You know what?
That's how they.
Right.
What should stress people out is wrongdoing, secrets where you've harmed others, where you know that you're in an environment and you cheated and you lied about your credentials and about your education. But for people who prepared and have done it in a legal, moral, and ethical way, why should they worry? They made the sacrifice. It takes longer, but once that moment comes, that should relieve, forget about stress. That should make you relax and make you as calm as you've ever been. I want to talk about this when we return with Dr. Gary Bernard and Jordan Goodman.
Say bye-bye burgers, pass on the pizza, forget the francs. Anytime is party time. Discover Golden Crust's authentic Jamaican-style patties. Beef, chicken, vegetables, soya, spinach, and shrimp. Feast on our great taste sensations. Jerk chicken, oxtail, sliced fish, and much more. Savor the taste of the Caribbean. Only at a Golden Crust near you. A family tradition since 1949. GoldenCrustBakery.com.
For more information on the Armstrong Williams Show, please visit our new website at www.rightsidewire.com. There you can find his syndicated column archive, view live streams, and get your favorite conservative pundits' views on the current issues affecting the American people. From building wealth to foreign policy, stay connected with Armstrong Williams and his colleagues at the all-new www.rightsidewire.com.
Does your school, team, church, or charity need a new fundraiser? Do you need to work out of your home or part-time? Are you a small business that can use an additional revenue stream? Then you need Yellow Llama. Do you need affordable web services or tools to enhance your existing business? Are you a graphic artist who wants to create a revenue stream with your art but not get ripped off? Then go to www.yellowllama.com.
Anderson Brothers Bank, a family-owned and operated establishment that blends traditional personal service, local market awareness, and advanced technology to meet the financial needs of its customers. Visit abbank.com or call 843-464-6271 to see how they can assist you with your banking needs. Anderson Brothers Bank, celebrating 75 years of community banking, the way it should be. Stability right in your backyard since 1933.
America must change course if we hope to survive and save the American dream for our children and grandchildren. How do we fix Social Security and Medicare? How do we cut government spending? How do we reform health care? How do we simplify the tax code? The Heritage Foundation has a bold plan that tackles these tough problems using common sense solutions that leave partisan politics on the sidelines. Find out how we can save the American dream at savingthedream.org, paid for by the Heritage Foundation.
Join the millions of Americans who pursue one of our country's finest traditions, from hunting to sport shooting. Since 1871, the NRA has grown as a service organization involved in all aspects of shooting sports and is a proud defender of the Bill of Rights. Join today to begin taking advantage of exclusive membership offers and discounts, including up to $25,000 in insurance coverage. Contact the NRA today. Call 1-800-672-3888 or visit nra.org.
Where heads of state, sports, entertainment, and political celebrities meet. You're listening to Armstrong Williams.
And welcome back to the Armstrong Williams Show. Jordan Goodman, Gary Bernard are our guests. So, how do you respond to that, Gary?
Remind me what I'm responding to.
About, there's some things that should not cause you stress, and you live in a lie. You're lying on your resume.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean,
no, I got it. I agree with you. There are a lot of things we can say should or should not, but they still do. And I know I'm shifting a bit, but let's just take one other example. This isn't just about whether we're feeling secure or not, or whether we're people of ethical standards and have a moral compass. All those things are so important, but it's more than that. It's even related to our physical status. And there are people who are incredibly successful, have made millions and millions of dollars, but they're not healthy people. Now, they learn to manage risk with their money pretty well, maybe, but with relationship, with their own physical health. And next week, I know I'm skipping ahead, but I want to bring up two studies. One of them is pertinent to this. It is a recent study for the first time that attaches chronic stress primarily with a group of people who are asked to imagine certain things and how the C-reactive protein from the liver is released and then what that does to the body. And this is the first time that that's been measured in an experimental design, which is very interesting and very exciting for all of these psychosomatic type illnesses, the mind-body connection. So we're not just talking about well-being as far as making money and being good people. We're talking about just living healthy lives by managing stress and finding our zone. Our zone may be different than the pitcher's zone in the ninth inning of a big game, but we need to find our zone, and it can be done. And that's, I guess, my point.
Jordan?
I find a lot of people are very stress and risk-resistant these days, and it really limits their opportunities tremendously. They saw what happened. I mean, I'll just give you an example. In the stock market, okay, we had the big stock market plunge back in 2007, 2008. Since then, the Dow Jones Industrials is up about 150% from the low just about 4 years ago, March 2009. Yet a lot of people are fighting it all the way up, and they're very, very resistant to risk and getting in. They have to see the market double before they get in. So their psychology has stopped them from taking advantage of tremendous opportunities out there.
Sure.
And in my world, that's an example of people being very risk-resistant and it really hurting them.
Yeah, and in my world, it's the same. And what we're talking about is a concept that is well documented, and it is that's the internal piece, and that's what makes it all so relative. We decide to give meaning to anything that happens to us. It may have some meaning inherent, by itself, but you're not going to get a lot of people to agree on that. We're the ones ultimately that attribute meaning to our existence, to events that occur in the marketplace, in our relationships. And you're right, Armstrong, you're right on the money with insecurities wreak havoc with this. Those are things we need to be working on. But as we get more refined in our way of using methods to calm ourselves, think clearly, pick up some little skills that are portable that we can take with us to keep ourselves in that zone. Parents who are working, two-parent family working or single-parent working all the time and still trying to parent and keep up with all the things going on in their kids' lives, that is stressful. It is a burden. We love our kids, but it's still stressful. What do we do to find a zone for ourselves and our family? And there are ways to do that, and we've talked briefly about them, and we can get more into that as we go into the next few weeks. But that's the point. It's not to add more stress. It's a concept, an idea, stress is, and we can make it very stressful if that's all we're doing, talking about stress.
Well, you look at the same opportunity, and some people will see that very negatively, and some people see it very positively. And
right.
stress, for one, the negative people is like, I don't want to get near there. The people who are optimistic will say that means opportunity. Looking at exactly the same thing. And
Armstrong in the past, I agree with Jordan. Armstrong in the past, you've said that. You say, well, I struggle with that because I'm just not that way. And I get that. That's one of the habits and characteristics you will see with people who are successful and feel good about themselves in all areas of life, is they found the zone where they don't waste their energy on worry and things like that. They put a positive spin. They move to the positive opposite instead of dwelling on the negative. And it is one of the strategies that serves us very well in setting up these other methods that help us stay relatively stress-free.
Well, what is the relationship between stress and depression?
Well, it is almost a one-to-one correlation. The more stress people are under, the more of this C-reactive protein and inflammation in the system, including the brain, the more we're finding serotonin levels drop, and other areas that are pretty interesting that I'm going to talk about next week as well, that's specific to depression. And if we're able to find ways behaviorally, yes, people are working on medicines and all that good stuff, and I'm glad medical science is wonderful. But if we'll just learn some things about that relationship between chronic stress and depressed mood, we can change it. People do all the time. And it's a wonderful thing to see. It's such an encouraging and happy thing to watch someone decide they're going to spend several months, if not a year, working on ways to tweak all of that so they're living lives where their mood is positive instead of profoundly depressed.
I actually did a book on this whole topic in the financial area called Master Your Money Type, and I talk about people's different personality types and how they deal with stress in various ways. So I'm not going to go through all of them, but just two of the opposite extreme would be the squirrel, are the kind of totally risk and stress resistant people, and the opposite of what I would call high rollers that love stress, that revel in it, that do very well by it. So, and in many cases, based on their backgrounds, or not only their parents or their grandparents, what happened, their histories, but people kind of go into the world with a certain, what I call a money type, is the kind of the filter that they use to see how they're going to be dealing with stress and opportunity.
Yes.
I just think that I just think when you let stress can bring about cancer, illness, disease, I don't think people really understand how it can really deteriorate the body and ultimately the mind. I know people who, no matter what they have in life, and I can see them and they're just so blessed, but yet they're so depressed. And so much of it is just created by them. And it doesn't seem like there's much you can do to help them out of those dark places.
Yeah,
I think anybody can be turned around. I really do. Maybe I'm too optimistic.
I agree with that, of course, or, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing. But I'll tell you, it is a very hopeless and helpless feeling when you're dealing with people that you love or care about, or even just any human being, that you would like to see sort of catch on fire with this new way of viewing themselves in the world and to start experimenting some with it, and yet they don't. And that's probably the most defeating negative thing of that is, if we would experiment with different ways, most of us will gain something from it and make appropriate changes. Not all of us.
Let me raise this with you because we're running out of time. What I don't understand is the stress level in teenagers who can't sleep, who feel they have all these issues and are pressured by their peers. And, for children and teenagers, they basically rely on their parents. The parents take care of them until they finish college. But it seems like it's impacting teenagers more than any other demographic, Dr. Bernard.
Well, you're exactly right. We've seen such a huge spike in anxiety and mood disorders in children. And some of them are appropriately diagnosed, some may not be, but it's on the upswing in a big way, and you just wait. That will recycle in adult life, and I've already seen that. After 30 years, you get to see kids move through this and even have their own kids, and you start to see how it moves from one generation to the next, just like with money types. And that's the thing that is so frustrating. We can do something about that as a group and individually, yet we're not. Now, why? Well, there are things that get in the way. We're overloaded. When you get totally stressed out and you stop looking at the positive aspects of life, and everything becomes restricted. All you see is the negative, and that can be a very dysfunctional way to live life.
Well, I would tell you this. I don't do well around negative people. You don't find them as a part of my circle of influence. I just can't. It's just too much, actually.
What we try to do in many cases, we medicate them today, right? This is what ADD and Ritalin and all those things about. We want them to take away the negativity by just medicating them to death.
That's not the answer.
No, of course it's not. And medicine can be very appropriate in treatment, but it's never going to change. We don't have anything in the psychological field. There's nothing that medicine cures, and there never will be. I just think that's a truism. What it may do is help manage
being given
systems.
Inappropriately? Dr. Menard, do you think
sure. Yeah, there is, but they can be very helpful, though.
Dr. Bernard, Jordan Goodman, thank you both so much for joining us. What a good discussion.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And thank you.
For more information on the Armstrong-Williams Show, please visit our new website at www.rightsidewire.com. There you can find his syndicated column archive, view live streams, and get your favorite conservative pundits' views on the current issues affecting the American people. From building wealth to foreign policy, stay connected with Armstrong Williams and his colleagues at the all-new www.rightsidewire.com.
America must change course if we hope to survive and save the American dream for our children and grandchildren. How do we fix Social Security and Medicare? How do we cut government spending? How do we reform health care? How do we simplify the tax code? The Heritage Foundation has a bold plan that tackles these tough problems using common sense solutions that leave partisan politics